The world now seems that it's inflamed. North Korea recently exploded a nuclear device. Iran and Saudi Arabia are threatening one another. There's a continuing conflagration in Syria, which has produced a flood of Muslim refugees that are destabling Western Europe. Incumbent Chris Delaney voted in support of the Iran nuclear agreement, even though he said he didn't like it very much. He also supports the taking in of additional refugees from Syria if they can be properly screened. We're going to start this topic along those lines, talking about national security. Mr. Griffiths.
This question's for you, Delegate Vote. You recently announced that you will introduce a bill in the House of Delegates under which mosques and other organizations that are linked to the spread and support of radical Islam would lose their tax-exempt status. Can't this be potentially described as discriminatory against Muslims, and can't this law be used as a basis for discrimination against Christians and other denominations in the future?
A couple of issues with that. If anybody were to look at the proposal that was released, it was clearly indicated mosques and organizations that can be linked through the Department of Homeland Security of having ties either indirectly or directly to terrorism. If there's anybody that can argue we shouldn't get rid of folks that have ties to terrorism, then they're not American. Further than that, there should always be concerns, and that should be, and I see it as a responsibility of state delegates and state senators on a state level, as the federal government should not be reaching into our business and making sure those types of activities are not happening in the state of Maryland. And it's my duty as a delegate and my duty as United States Marine to make sure that terrorism does not affect our homes, our families, our children.
Ms. O'Connor.
This question is for Frank Howard. Do you support our governor's position of not allowing refugees to come into the state of Maryland without proper background checks? Why or why not?
I support Governor Hogan 100%, and the day he came out with his position, I was on Twitter and my campaign Facebook page lauding that. I think what he's doing, along with 30-some other governors, is the smart thing to do. I mentioned it or alluded to it in my opening statement. I think it is extraordinarily dangerous to take in the Syrian refugees without proper vetting. And recently, Mr. Comey, the head of the FBI, said that because of the nature of the chaos and the dysfunction, and candidly, the nature of their culture, their country in Syria, there's not enough there to vet to begin with. And there's no amount of money that the federal government can throw at it, in my opinion, based on what I understand, to vet them properly. It's very dangerous to take in the refugees and say we have vetted them with our system, even if we have. And I think because of these problems that I mentioned, and I think finally, Kat, the major problem in my mind is Congressman Delaney saying not only is he in favor of this settlement, but he is also, of these refugees, but he's also in favor of speeding it up, and this blows my mind. He's actually questioned the cap at 10,000. He thinks we should be able to speed it up and take more than 10,000. I think that's ludicrous.
Mr. Foldy.
Ms. Hofer, your background is in national security, and so I'm curious, in light of all of the latest round of chaos in the Middle East, in the aftermath of Saudi Arabia executing around 47 people, including a cleric whom Iran had asked them to not execute, I'm curious, and then after that, several countries have severed their diplomatic relations with Iran. However, others have also sided with Iran against Saudi Arabia. So I'm curious, whose side should the United States be on here, if any side at all?
Thank you. That's a difficult question, of course, today because things are evolving very rapidly over there. I think our current posture of trying to mediate between the two sides and calm them down some is exactly right. But we have to understand that the Shiite-Sunni disagreement goes back to some very fundamentals in their religious doctrine. It's been going on for some thousands of years. We are not likely to solve it overnight. And I think the most important thing we can do is to carefully assess whatever we decide to do in terms of its objectives, in terms of what we expect to get out of it, what we're going to do, and how we're going to end whatever it is we're going to do. Over the years, one of the toughest problems in looking at military adventures, and for that matter, diplomatic adventures in these sorts of conflicts, is to decide how to end them. One of the great men I worked with many years ago wrote a book called Every War Must End, and that's something that I think every person in every administration ought to read that deals with national security.
Thank you so much. Ms. Hodges.
National security is a big deal, as we've seen our standing in the world drop and our influence in the world and the bad guys thundering out there. We are currently building down our defenses. How would you build them up, and how would you do it in relation to all of our other spending?
Who's that directed to?
I'll do it to Mr. Chang and Mr. Vogt.
You heard me? Kind of difficult. Okay. You know, I will say strength, national defense, and increase intelligence service capability. And also that rebuild our military, restore the faith that in our national defense for the protect our people. Yeah, and I hope that any defense cut, you know, I think that Obama, they passed some $1 trillion US defense cut. I hope it if I'm the congressman. I mean, we have to have strongly national defense. Yeah, this is what my point.
Mr. Vogt.
Yeah.
Having been in the Marine Corps for 8 years and also then serving at the Pentagon for a year, I've seen very directly inside our armed forces that there are plenty of areas that we can save money. At the end of every fiscal year, anybody that's ever worked for any federal agency, but inside the military, can see they sprint like a mad dash to spend every dollar they have in their budget so they don't lose it in the next year. That would save us billions, I have no doubt, and I've seen it firsthand. And where we save that money, we then can focus into areas that are in desperate need of attention. Our nuclear subs are disintegrating. Our Air Force, are the planes that we're using to put attacks on these countries that we're supposed to be protecting ourselves from and protecting our allies from, are 60 years old. There's areas that instead of doing what the president has done and failed policies of trying to just completely disarm our military, we can cut areas and refocus it into those needs that are high priority, and to be able to allow us to continue to still protect ourselves and do what we need to do without exorbitant spending over what we can afford. And then we can get back to what we should be doing, that's protecting our homeland and standing by our allies in Israel.
Congressman Delaney has been quoted as saying that immigration reform is a moral and economic imperative, and that he is a strong supporter of comprehensive immigration reform, including a path to citizenship for more than 11 million undocumented immigrants. Do you support Mr. Delaney's comments about immigration reform?
There are millions of very bright people around the world who would make very fine Americans that could contribute to our society and bring jobs to Western Maryland. And I'm all for a path for letting those people come to the United States. If people are here illegally, it's a legal process. You have to go through the legal process just like you do when you get married, just like paying taxes is a legal process. There should be a legal process for people to go through to become citizens, and I'm for that. I'm not for very much of what Mr. Delaney says or his indecisiveness on Iran. I'm pretty much opposed to Delaney down the line, and that's why we need to get rid of our recumbent.
Thank you. Mr. Mason, how would you address national security issues if you were elected to Congress?
Well, first of all, if I'm elected to Congress, national security on immigration is probably one of our weakest points, because having weak borders allows any and all people around the world to get in, including ISIS and Al-Qaeda or any one of the alphabet terrorist organizations. What we need to do is we need to stop immigration altogether in this country. We did that in the early 20th century. All immigration into this country needs to be stopped. That's okay. We need to stop it for one reason. We have 95 million people out of jobs in this country. We're going to bring more people into this country, and we can't even vet the ones that we are bringing in. And at the same time, the opponents, the Democrats, they use illegal immigration to usurp the Republican vote. 70% of the people that come to this country illegally end up voting Democrat. So it's just a voter registration drive for the Democratic Party. And also, we protect this country by we project strength around the world. One of the things that we don't do, especially Obama's made sure of that, is that we were weak. We need to protect. One of the first things we do is quit all the post-World War II bases. Shut all those bases down in Europe. Save that money and reallocate the military to fight terrorism in the Middle East and around the world. We actually need to fight the people that want to destroy us.
Thank you.
My question is for Commissioner Baker. Would you support a formal declaration of war against ISIS?
What are we waiting on? Yeah, before I came in here, I did a little research, and I just wrote down some things on my piece of paper. And the shoe bomber, Ford Hood shooter, the underwear or the underwear bomber, USS Cole bombers, the London subway, the Moscow Theater, the Boston Marathon, which is near and dear to my heart. I was a very gifted athlete one time a day, and I did finish 7th in the Boston Marathon back in 1981. So my heart really went out to all of the athletes there. Thank you. The Iranian embassy takeover, San Bernardino, and I just sit around and I think we have Obama, Clinton, Kerry. They're guiding us, and they can't figure it out. They want to bring more immigration, more refugees into the United States. The same people that have just tortured us, killed us, hate us, and he just wants to continue to bring them in without vetting. Appreciated your comments on let's stop it for a while. Let's get our own country under control before we start considering letting others into our country. Thank you. One other comment. I don't know if I were in war, I think the last people I'd want in my foxhole would be Clinton, Obama, either one. Obama, Kerry. I'd have to take them out first.
This question is from Bobby Hober. The President has promised to use executive orders to essentially change the Second Amendment. Do you think what he has proposed is necessary? And do you support a citizen's right to self-defense in both private and public?
This is easy. This is easy. We own guns. How do I turn the mic on? Okay, this one's easy. We own guns and I'm a good shot. And any of you want to take me on, feel free. I support the Second Amendment. I support the Constitution. I will not stand idly by while this right of ours is being threatened.
Mr. Painter, you've been ignored so far about national security issues. We'd like to address the question to you. What is your view about immigration and our national security issues?
I think immigration is both a national security problem and, sorry,
This mic isn't working very well.
can you hear it now? All right, thank you. Yeah, I do think immigration is both a problem for national security and for what's, to be honest, my main agenda is for restoring the American economy and the working man too, the middle class. We simply can't have a porous border that anybody can walk across morning, noon, or night. You just can't have it. We must secure the southern border. We must vet anybody coming into the country. And I'm sorry, and the people in the Mideast that are in a terrible place, let them go to Saudi Arabia or other places over in the Mideast where they fit in, where they're not culturally outcast. You don't have problems like what happened in Germany here just the other day, where you had a bunch of people, a bunch of men who had come from the Mideast that weren't accustomed to how to act and treat women in Western civilization. Let them go to a country where they are comfortable. So I would like to slow down or stop Mideast immigration, and I want that wall on the Mexican border.
We're now into our last segment of questioning. This is going